Hey, good evening, Saints fans and Hoodats from all over the world. This is Kyle T. Mosley here with the Bayou Blitz, and I have the host, the Mr. Bob Rose. What's going on, Bob?
Too much, Kyle. I hope you and the family are doing well. I hope all of our viewers and your families are doing well also. And happy Friday to everybody.
Yeah, it is Friday, man. I'm starting to like these Friday night video calls that we're having, man. You know, get some things done, able to talk shop about Saints. Guys, we got a full slate tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the Saints, COVID-19, Malcolm Jenkins and his comments, as well as Mrs. Benson's leadership. Man, she's taken the charge on some of these social changes that are occurring in professional sports, and the renaming, I should say, of Dixie Brewery, as well as the beer and all the associated products. And also, man, we just got some questions for you as the fans. I want to know a couple of things just to voice your opinion about what's going on in sports. Where do we cross the line? A lot of people have been asking that question of myself, as well as some of the writers. Where do we cross the line where an article becomes too political in most people's opinions? So let's just kind of start off with what happened earlier this week, Bob. Well, a couple of days ago, I should say, with Malcolm Jenkins being on CNN, talking about his concerns about returning back to football, and then coming back hours later, to clarify his points on the matter. How do you see everything going on right now with the NFL, as well as the other major sports coming back to live activity, so to speak?
I think all of those men and women, that are involved in sports, have very valid reason for being concerned. You have to figure, folks, these are human beings after all, men and women with families, parents, children, spouses. So at the end of the day, they are human. We tend to immortalize them, for lack of a better term, by watching them on TV, writing about them, interviewing them, etc. But put yourself in their shoes. We still, we as a nation, as a society, are still having a hard time getting grips and control over the whole COVID-19 pandemic. And that's still exactly what it is. It is very concerning for all of us, not only as individuals, but as parents, as children, and as family people. So, of course, Malcolm Jenkins is going to voice his opinion, and I have no problem with what he said. I'm a little bit surprised, actually, that more players and participants haven't echoed these sentiments either, because this is a disease that kills. We know the numbers. We have seen the statistics, and it's a scary time right now. And society is now, in the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, all these organizations are now looking like they're going to step back onto the field of competition. And while we as viewers, fans, writers are excited for this, we have to be concerned about the health concerns, not only for the public in attendance, and we have talked about that, whether there'll be attendance, whether there won't be, what kind of regulations, etc. But we have talked very little about the players that are going to be on the field and what kind of concerns that they face. So I do believe that there's a fear, and justifiably so. I do expect more players to kind of echo Malcolm Jenkins' sentiments, and I hope to God, and I pray to God for these players' safety, as well as all the fans in attendance.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, I think you said it pretty well, Bob, when you talk about making a player or a sports figure almost like a deity, right? And they are human and everybody has valid concerns. If you guys hadn't heard, Malcolm Jenkins pretty much said that football is a non-essential part of life. And he's correct. Without his health, how will he be able to play the game of football? But also, how will he be able to care for his family? How will he be able to care for he has a aging mother. I don't know how old Miss Gwendolyn actually is, but those are things that guys want to be around for, to care for their parents. I was a caregiver for my mom until she passed away as well. But you want to see your kids, right? You don't want to even come home and spread the virus to your family. And that has happened all too often, man. Personally, I have 2 family members that have come down with COVID in the same household. So it is a possibility, and it's a real possibility, and we have to be mindful and respectful, in my opinion, of that. All right, we have Paul T. How you doing, Paul? I'm an essential worker, but I have to perform daily. I do it for the love of my job. Hopefully they love their jobs too. Well, Malcolm Jenkins did say that he does like his job. And that was another, I guess, point I was going to bring up as well, Bob. Why is it that if a player expresses their concern, people believe that they don't want to play football any longer? I don't get that. What's your thoughts there?
And that you're right. That is completely misguided. Again, these people are humans. They have human feelings. They have human emotions, and part of that is doubt. Part of that is looking forward to the future. I know when I coached, when I played, when I played ball myself, volleyball, it did reach a point in my career where I would contemplate retirement or stepping away, from the sport and from the game. That didn't mean that I didn't love it. It didn't mean that I didn't want to play it anymore. It just, you have to face your mortality as a player at some point in time and realize that there is life off the field or outside of your sport. And like you said, Kyle, these people, these men, in the case of the NFL, they have families to take care for. They want to have an opportunity to enjoy time with those families, with their parents, their spouses, and especially their kids. And they certainly have the right to do so. I think, and I've seen it many, many times before. We all have. There's sayings like, "Oh, if a player is thinking about retirement, they might as well step away because they're already out the door." I so vehemently disagree with that. They're just thinking and have the right to think about their future. The game of professional football is only a chapter in these men's lives, and they certainly have the right and the freedom to live and plan for those lives away from the game.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. I mean, I always say this, man. You guys are not going to care what happens to Kyle T. Mosley if I vanish off the face of the earth tomorrow. Some people may have a momentary, oh man, that's pretty sad to hear about Kyle. Life goes on, right? And let's be for real, man. And with a player as well, a player has to be considered. They have families, man, and they'll like to spend time with their families. They'll like to see their kids grow up healthy as well, right? And being a male, and I'm being a little bit chauvinistic right now, Bob. I want to be able to control as much as I can for my family. I would like to be able to provide for my family, make sure that they're healthy, and make sure that they have everything that's necessary for them to be able to continue on in life. My kids' educations, everything else, those are things that are important to most people. Paul T., we need these players to speak up on how they felt when they caught the virus. That's very good. Like Von Miller, as well as Ezekiel Elliott. That's a very great comment, Paul. They got to be able to share with the people their concerns. Now, we did hear from Coach Payton when he called it, right? So he was the first major figure in, I think, really the sports world, right? Because we heard of actors and everything else, Bob, they had, but Coach Payton was pretty much the major figure. He came through it, but he was able to also explain to people some of the side effects that he had, some of the symptoms that he had that we need to pay attention to. Austin Carr for the Saints, he has it, or had it. He and his wife, when they were about to give birth to their child. I mean, so there are a lot of sports figures really close to home that we could be able to try to hear from as well. So those are very, very good points. That Saints number one at Jerry Puri. All right, guys. So those are just some of my thoughts there about what happened with Malcolm Jenkins. And I wanted to just see if we could be able to pull up those comments, but let's see.
To be clear, I want to play football. I think all my peers want to play football. It's how we make a living. But there's so much that we don't know right now. And what we look at, what's happening in the country. Cases are going up. Projected deaths are going up. We look at what's happening in college football. Over 41 schools have outbreaks of COVID in their locker rooms as they try to come back for voluntary workouts. LSU's got 30 guys that are now in quarantine. We're watching other sports that will start up before football to see how they're doing it, what their protocols are, and if they'll work. There's so much that we don't know at this point, but I know that the bar for the NFL is going to be high when it comes to creating a safe work environment and making it as safe as possible for guys to come back. As we keep in mind, it's not just about the athletes and their health or the coaches or staff, but our families too.
Okay. What are your thoughts there, Bob?
I think Malcolm was being very clear and very genuine about his feelings. I personally don't believe that he came across negatively towards the NFL or any of the professional sports sports organizations at all. And I think he voiced his concerns very eloquently. And I don't understand some of the criticism that has come out, against him. Of course, these franchises, these organizations, they're a business and they run their facilities as such. But again, they're not going into this blindly. We didn't see the I don't think the NCAA, the NBA, or Major League Baseball, or the NHL for that matter, can be accused of going into this blindly. They were all relatively quick, and frankly surprised me at how quick that they cut their seasons. And the NFL during the initial outbreak of COVID-19, the NFL, fortunately for them, was not in season at the time. So we didn't really get to see how the NFL would have handled it up until right now. We did see them make the necessary adjustments, the NFL did, for their draft, which is always a huge event, for their off-season workouts and OTAs, and canceling those events, and kind of leaving the start of training camp, preseason, and for that matter, the start of the NFL season up in the air. That is a good and safe business decision. And now the start of said training camps are, of course, around the corner, and the NFL looks like it's proceeding as planned, with fingers crossed. I have said this all along. I have to believe that the NFL as an organization will have and does have contingency plans should this second phase of the outbreak continue to grow. And until the NFL shows us a reason why we shouldn't have confidence in them, at least in the way that they're handling this, then I believe that we should have confidence in them. I like the way they've handled everything so far because of what I said about their what they did to change the draft and eliminate the off-season workouts and start the video Zoom meetings between teams and players. That was the safe way to proceed. So I have no reason to doubt that they'll attempt to proceed safely as we go forward.
Okay. Well, I do have a slight criticism. Okay. And the slight criticism is that some camps were projected to start in less than a month. I cannot see how any National Football League camp will be able to start this soon. Now, we have had a spike in COVID and coronavirus testings lately for positive results. But the thing is, man, here where I'm at in Houston, they're requiring everybody to wear face masks now, and they have requested to shut down businesses and people to work from home as much as possible again, right? So my question would have been more for the National Football League as well as NBA and other leagues. Could they have quarantined their players sooner, right? Could they have possibly start putting that bubble around them like Dr. Fauci said, right? Could they have done that a lot sooner? And then we could possibly have had more or less cases occurring as a result. You guys got Tom Brady out there with the Tampa Bay Bucks teammates. He's practicing out in the open. You have Drew Brees and Emmanuel Sanders out there practicing out there in the open. Then they disregard the National Football League Players Association's Dr. Tom Mayer when he put the announcement out this past weekend. Guys refrain from doing that. But you see those guys right back out there working out together. So what do we do, Bob? I mean, you have grown men who want to participate. They want to play football. They want to get themselves in shape and ready for the season. But are we doing it the right way? Has the NFL really done enough to say, let's get these guys, let's contain the situation as much as possible so we can be able to put a product on the field? Am I a little hair crazy on that one?
No, you do have a point, but I will disagree with you in a way because, again, the NFL has only had the opportunity to show us what they did with the draft and what they did with the off-season workouts as far as the team activities. What we've seen lately with Tom Brady and a few of his teammates, and the video between Drew Brees and Emmanuel Sanders the other day, those are individuals, a couple or a small number of individuals working out by their own volition. In other words, it would be the same as if you and your family came over to my family's house for dinner. You and I and our families all realize the situation and the severity of it through society. And I know for a fact that you and I have both limited as much as we can how much we go out in public. So basically because we don't want to put our families at risk. So if you and I and our families choose to get together individually and hang out, you would think that we would possess the intelligence to not get together if any of our families were showing the symptoms or any kind of illness whatsoever. And frankly, that's common sense. And the NFL does have the opportunity on the next step to show us how prepared they truly are. Because like you mentioned, most teams, and I believe the Saints are scheduled to start their training camp July 24th, if I'm not mistaken. That's less than a month away, as you pointed out. The cases I think we could safely say that we are approaching or in phase 2 or wave 2 of the coronavirus. If those numbers continue to grow in the next couple of weeks, the NFL is going to indeed have a big decision to make. They've already canceled their Hall of Fame game and the Hall of Fame presentations, for that matter, for 2020, which in my opinion was huge.
Yes.
I think that the next step would be to officially announce that there will be no fan attendance at training camp. Now, the biggest step would be to either delay or eliminate NFL training camps altogether from the team's participation. If that happens, in my opinion, that is the first real sign of concern for the scheduled start of the actual NFL season.
Okay, I agree with that. I wonder if we should even think about having a preseason. You know, Bob?
It's been a question. It's a valid question.
Here's the problem. And if you look at everything in the whole, man, I kind of hesitate because being a part of media, I won't be able to attend as well.
Right.
I won't be able to have that player interaction, ask the questions. You know, I may have a face mask here or there, but, you know, is that really enough to be able to protect those guys? You know, I think when you look at this business, and football is big business, right? If the NFL does not play at all in 2020, they stand to lose close to $5 billion. And $5 billion is huge, right? So that's why
your yearly salary, right?
Well, you know, I'll give you a little something for saying that and help. You know, I'll give you 100/10 of that. All right, but look, man, I tell you this, Bob. My concern is, do I travel to these other sites?
Mm-hmm.
You know, do I want to be on a plane or in a hotel room where I could be able to come back and affect my family as well?
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are some of the things that I'm concerned with, and how will I proceed as a member of the media covering the New Orleans Saints? Okay, valid points. Do I tell Sports Illustrated I'm not going? I pretty might do that, you know. So, but it's not to anyone's fault. But I have to be able to be mindful of, like you said, the long term. I have a family. I have a young kid that I would like to see grow up as well. So, you know, those are some of the things that are on my mind. All right. I don't want to belabor the point and talk more about that. Jerry, you're right. It sucks training camps without fans, but yeah, you understand. And let's talk a little bit about the name change. You know, that's the big news that came out of Saints camp as well as Pelicans camp, that Mrs. Benson has decided to change the name of Dixie Beer and Brewery and all of the associated products, right? So Dixie name is offensive in your opinion, Paul T. Unity will be my preferred name of the beer. Interesting. Unity. Okay. All right. I hear you. I understand. Let's just talk a little bit about this, Bob, because the Dixie Chicks, which is a huge, and they've been very controversial on some of their political views as well, especially being country western, right? Which has been mostly conservative, as well as Lady Antebellum. She changed her name from Lady Antebellum to Lady A. Now, Dixie Chicks are now going to be known as the Chicks. All right. Okay. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but what's your thoughts here, man?
When does it stop? Where do we draw the line? Because a lot of people, and I think that they would have a valid point. We'll use the artist formerly known as the Dixie Chicks and now known as the Chicks for an example. How many women out there, and please, if you're watching, I'd love to hear your opinion. How many women out there get offended, if a man or anybody calls you a chick? At least the way I was raised, that was a disrespectful term. So like I said, when does this stop? Now, obviously, there are words, phrases, and names out there that are out there and only used for discriminatory and insulting purposes. That goes without saying. That's a no-brainer that you eliminate that. But Dixie, you're a Southerner, Kyle. You have been all your life. Has the term Dixie always been offensive, or you used offensively? I've been fortunate to travel all over the country and spend a lot of time in the South, but I was born and raised a Northerner, so maybe my thought process is different on the Dixie term, and I admit that it could be.
Yeah, look, man, my family, my dad didn't drink a lot of beer, but he drank a little bit, right? My mom and everybody, we kind of grew up, where they stopped buying Dixie, and I never knew why, but they went to Miller. Okay. Yeah, Dixie is offensive. You look at the origins of the name Dixie. Dixie was pretty much a French type of term that the banks came out with a note saying something about Dix. Dix stands for the 10, right? In French. It's a $10 note or whatever. That's what it was supposed to be. Then it became synonymous with the Confederacy. That's what the problem has been. That link to the Confederacy and the negative connotations as a result. Okay, and people can, whistling Dixie and all that other stuff. That really doesn't mean much to me, other than it's kind of mildly offensive, right? Okay. I had a friend of mine, and it wasn't me, but I had a friend of mine that after President Obama was, I think he was wrapping up his 8 years in office. One of the guys was at a hardware store, and they had two older Caucasian guys outside talking about the election coming up. And the guy said, well, we're not going to have none of that sweetness crossing the Dixie line any longer. And we asked another guy about what those guys meant. We weren't kind of sure what that meant, but it was an offensive term about how they weren't going to allow the sweetness, were referring to African Americans gaining a prominent, powerful position. All right. Now, I'm not trying to get political, guys. I know that's where we lose fans, right? But yeah, Dixie has negative connotations to it, Paul T. Dixie simply means the 11 states that seceded from the Union, the Confederacy. Right. All right. So, all right, let's go back to Mrs. Benson. Mrs. Benson, in my opinion, if you look at, she was the first NFL owner to come out to stand against some of the social injustices and stating that what she would do as far as her foundation is to be able to implement certain strategies to help in the communication, bridging the gaps here and there, right? All right, so then Mrs. Benson also came out in support of some of the other people out there in the world having issues, right? And Mrs. Benson now has taken more of an initiative talking about changing this name and being more, is it savvy to understand what's happening in the present wave and change in the United States of America. So I think when you look at Mrs. Benson and what she's doing, she's bucking the system.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't hear because you didn't hear anything from Jerry Jones. Yeah, I didn't hear anything from the Maras up in New York. I didn't hear anything from the Hunts. Right? Those are some of the prominent families, and there are others as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Mrs. Benson is doing a great job. And I noted in my article about the name change, Mrs. Benson's she's made some significant hires within the Pelicans and Saints organizations with Shanika Dabney Henderson, who also used to be known as Nola Chick and went on to the NFL Network, became their producer, and now she's the VP of production for the New Orleans Saints, and Swin Cash, VP of basketball operations right now. And both of those young ladies are doing a tremendous job, as well as the Saints. The guy, I know we credit Mickey Loomis a lot for what happens with the contract negotiations, but it's Kai Harley. Kai Harley is the VP of football administration for the New Orleans Saints. He's an African-American young man, right? And you have John DeShazier, as well as, being the color analyst for the Pelicans, as well as the main writer for the New Orleans Saints organization himself. So there are prominent African-Americans in the Saints and Pelicans operations, as well as coaching staff as well, right? And we can go on and on about that. But what I'm saying about Mrs. Benson, I think she is being a pioneer. Yes, Paul, she is being a pioneer to me as well. Mary Lou says she believes Dixie Cups will be next. You never know. Dixie Cups could be next, Mary Lou. So that's where we are right now, right? So I don't want to belabor the point, but I think Mrs. Benson has done a great job in taking the lead when other National Football League owners, as well as NBA owners, have not done as well. Okay?
Oh, I completely agree with that. And what have we been saying over the last several weeks, both on air and in private conversations? That some people, many people, are coming out and at least starting to say the right kind of things now. We wondered out loud about two things. One, will that continue? And two, will people start putting their actions into their words? And I don't think there's any question that Mrs. Benson is doing just that. And I think the word pioneer is a very good description. You see it trickling down through both the Pelicans and the Saints organizations, and I love to see it. And I don't see any reason to believe that it won't continue as long as Mrs. Benson is in charge of not only the Saints and Pelicans, but all of the Benson family's business interests. And I do love to see it.
Yeah. I like to see what's happening. I think the diversity is great for the organization, but I think what she's done as kind of going against the old guard is pretty impressive right now, because most new owners would be quiet. Let me keep my position. Let me not say anything. Let me not ruffle any feathers whatsoever. Right. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some Saints football, man. A few weeks ago, our friend Nader, he released some information that he had on Jadeveon Clowney, right? My question is, do you believe the Saints can afford Clowney? That's my question. Right now, we're sitting at a little bit over $8 million in cap space. What are your thoughts?
I don't believe Jadeveon Clowney is going to be a New Orleans Saint. I never have believed that Jadeveon Clowney is going to be a Saint. I do acknowledge that it's certainly possible, mainly because Jadeveon Clowney is still a free agent, and the New Orleans Saints are no strangers to pulling the trigger on aggressive moves that Coach Sean Payton believes can further his team towards a championship. Clowney would definitely be a great fit, but his asking price, at least reportedly, since the start of free agency, has been awfully high. He wants to be paid among the elite edge defenders, and that's certainly within his right. And you can make a case. I wouldn't personally put him in the league with the elite edge defenders, but definitely the next category down. So I certainly believe that he is deserving of a high salary. Now, the recent reports, and Nader Murphy has certainly backed this up. The recent reports have come out that Clowney is more interested in playing for a legitimate Super Bowl contender for a 1-year contract, and then willing to then hit the free agent market for presumably a big money deal after that. The recent two reports that the Cowboys and the Saints seem to be the front runners. Now, we've not heard anything officially from the New Orleans Saints, but we also shouldn't find that as completely surprising. And you could certainly put both the Saints and the Cowboys in the very short list of legitimate Super Bowl contenders. We will see if Clowney is willing to, if you'll pardon the expression, put his lack of money where his mouth is, and see if he is truly interested in playing for a contender once he does sign with a team, which I've got to believe would be within the next couple of weeks. The Saints should be able to afford him on a 1-year team-friendly deal, worth, and I'm just grabbing a figure out here, $4 or $5 million, allowing Jadeveon to then hit the free agent market. That would still potentially put New Orleans into a bidding war with said Cowboys, even the Seahawks, who Clowney played for last year, who could still be termed as contenders, in my opinion, and probably a number of other teams. Like you mentioned, Kyle, the Saints have a little bit under $9 million of salary cap room. But as we all know, we can usually ignore the finances when it comes to the New Orleans signings and player contracts because of how expertly the front office navigates this cap. I'll be interested to see where Clowney signs. I still don't personally believe it would be in New Orleans, as great a fit as that would be.
Yeah. Guys, have we forgotten we still have Marcus Davenport? And we have Marcus Hunt. We have the young guy they picked up from undrafted free agent, the Oregon guy. Cumberland. Yeah. We have Trey Hendrickson, right? We have Mario Edwards Jr., right? We still have some pretty good defensive ends. Clowney would be look, how do I say it? You can't coach speed and talent, raw talent, right? Athleticism. You can't coach those things. Those things you either have it or you don't, right? And I believe Clowney has it. Could he come to the Saints and be coached up by the defensive line coach? Yeah, I think he can. I think he could possibly turn in an outstanding performance. But man, who you not going to play? Who's going to really sit on the bench, right? Those are some of the things that if we pursue Clowney, how will it fit? Or will there be a package deal where the Saints decide to give up somebody to be able to get Clowney and have one of those trade and sign type of deals and things of that nature with other teams? So, hey, Brendan said more likely Clowney or Griffin, and why? I don't know what the why is, but I don't know. I mean, I like Griffin as well. Griffin is a possibility. Clowney was hurt last year. He only had 3 sacks. But Clowney, Paul T, he did affect some of the games that he was participating in, as well as Davenport. Let's be honest. He did affect some of the games that he was participating in until that season-ending injury. Paul T, we need a cornerback. I totally agree. And then that man right there, Mr. Bob Rose, he totally agrees as well. A cornerback makes more sense, in my opinion, right now, Bob. We really need to – we have Jenkins, we have Lattimore, and everybody else, right? And I'm not knocking everybody else. I'm just saying everybody else. So what's going to happen when we have an injury? Like what happened in the Minnesota playoff game when Lattimore went out at a critical time in the game. They inserted P-Rob. We know what happened, right? So I think another quality cornerback would make more sense for the team versus having a defensive end, especially if, let's say, worst case scenarios with the COVID-19 situation, man. I think you got to have as much depth as possible, with you guys, So Paul T wants to know from you, Bob, who are the best available cornerbacks?
Paul, you make me sad. I just wrote an article on this the other day. Listen, there are a number of really talented free agents in nearly every position still surprisingly available at cornerback. And I've said for months that I wanted the Saints to add another cornerback, if not in free agency, then through the draft. It didn't happen through the draft, but you look at who's available right now. Logan Ryan is the name that seems to be at the top of everybody's lists. But Darqueze Dennard, Drake Kirkpatrick, Morris Claiborne, all former number 1 draft choices. I think Claiborne and Kirkpatrick have even made Pro Bowls. Those are the 3 guys at the top of my list. And then, of course, you do look at Logan Ryan. You even look at a guy like Kayvon Webster. He's definitely a second-tier, maybe third-tier free agent. But we saw what Kayvon could do in the Saints defense last year when, in my opinion, he should have made this the final New Orleans roster, but was among the very final cutdowns. So even a guy like Kayvon Webster, who is familiar with the system, something very key to keep in mind if the Saints do sign anybody else, because with the lack of off-season workouts, the Saints have preferred to sign their own or players that have familiarity with their offensive or defensive systems. But if you look at the talent, again, Logan Ryan, Morris Claiborne, Drake Kirkpatrick, Darqueze Dennard, all of them are starting caliber NFL cornerbacks. And none of them will come in to compete with Lattimore or Janoris Jenkins, like you said, Kyle, but would certainly be one hell of an upgrade to their number 3 cornerback spot now. Because you're not only talking about the possibility of injuries. How many times do we see teams line up with only 2 wide receivers in their formation? That's just not reality anymore. You need a deep secondary. And even though Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is perfectly capable of stepping in and starring in a slot coverage role, who's going to cover the 4th guy? Who's going to cover the 5th guy? Do you want P.J. Williams doing it again in a key moment? Do you want Patrick Robinson doing it again in a key moment? I don't. And although, Kyle, you and I both really love Dietrich Nichols and Keith Washington, both former guests of the show, they are still unproven at the NFL level. So until they prove themselves, I need, for my own mental and emotional well-being, I need a better 3rd cornerback option for the New Orleans Saints.
Okay, well, we want you to be mentally sound, so let's make sure that happens. But I'm pretty sure the team is aware of that as well. Look, guys, we haven't even signed our rookies yet.
Right.
And no, it's just 4 of those guys, but I'm pretty sure Ruiz will be taken care of, Bond, and the rest, Troutman as well. So let's try to get those guys under contract. Then let's kind of figure out from a perspective of who's going to be a part of the Saints if we acquire more guys through free agency. Here's a question to you, Bob. Do you believe the NFL would, because of COVID-19, decide to have an emergency expansion of the roster?
I think it's possible. I certainly think it's possible, and I don't think it's a bad idea at all. It would probably, I don't know if it would manifest itself in active game day roster, but maybe expansion of the practice squad by 6, 8, 10 extra players. Certainly wouldn't be a bad idea. In fact, if they limit training camp or preseason altogether, I'll go you one further. I don't think that the NFL has a choice but to allow the teams to have an expanded roster because we see it with individual players every year. A player holds out or sits out a lot of the preseason, and what happens to him? He gets injured early in the season because of conditioning issues.
That's right.
So it's incredibly possible that we might see that kind of thing, almost as if you'll forgive the term, almost as an epidemic throughout the league, because of the lack of off-season team workouts. So I would love if the NFL would allow their franchises to expand their rosters by half dozen to a dozen players.
Yeah, Jared, thanks for your vote. You think so? I think that's a valid possibility, man. Because we're under unique situations, man, and I know having an expanded roster means also having expanding payroll.
Yeah.
Right. And we know these guys hate to expand their payroll. But this is a unique season, unique situation. And I think this is one way you could be able to also, it gives some of those free agents that are sitting out or sitting at home waiting for calls and or to come in for tryouts and stuff, man, it gives some of those guys a possibility of being there. I heard somebody put out there, should the teams have one quarterback in isolation just in case the starting quarterbacks go into COVID-19 protocol, right? All right. I mean, I'm thinking all options possible. Why not? So I don't know, man. It's pretty interesting. Some of the scenarios people have been coming up with, Bob.
Yeah, that it is. And I realize it's a quarterback-driven league. But anybody that believes that quarterbacks are too protected, that would just pour fuel on the fire, wouldn't it? If you had an extra quarterback sitting on, while the other 21 players on each side are knocking heads just like they normally would.
Yeah. No, I think the guy said put this guy like in a quarantine in a hotel. So I was like, all right, man, I've heard it all, dude. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of last items, man. The Saints came out with, I guess more the Saints ticketing as well, came out with a proposal to have the first 8 rows of the Superdome unseated. Go with this one, Bob.
Do I have to? My God, that's a ridiculous proposal. Yeah, I saw it too. And I know that at least my plan is to come down for a few games this year. I already have tickets to the Chargers game, where interestingly enough, I'm sitting in row 9. But don't worry, folks, this wasn't my proposal. So that way I could be sitting in the very front row. But really, folks, again, common sense has to prevail here. What in the world would that save by eliminating the first 8 rows of seating? Okay, you're probably leaving a few thousand people at home. What about everybody else in every other row and every other section of every other stadium? That you can't tell me that this makes a lick of difference when it comes to player or consumer safety. Everybody else would still be out there. It doesn't. It was an interesting proposal to me at first. Again, only because of where my seats are scheduled to be. But I don't see it coming to fruition because it would assist absolutely nobody.
Guys, this is Airborne. And if Bob Rose comes to my home and he's asymptomatic but still is a carrier, Bob, you and I can be, let's see, I'm on one side of my home 50 feet away from one another, right? You breathe the wrong way or cough the wrong way or whatever, however it's being transmitted, I still can get it.
Mm-hmm.
How about what I don't understand. I understand from a player's point of view that gives them some subtle peace of mind, right? A coach subtle peace of mind. I think that's probably where this has been more of the motivation versus it actually being a valid precaution, in my opinion. So I think it's one of those Band-Aid type of proposals. All right, guys. Any last items you'd like to talk about, Bob, before we call it a night?
Just my plea to the public. We're talking about a very serious condition, a very serious situation, a very serious pandemic. And regardless, we're all going to hear different ideas and proposals and this and that. And, will they shut this down? Will they remain that open? Will they keep this open? How about this, folks? Do us all a favor and help yourselves and everybody else. If you don't feel well, if you have the symptoms, if you even think for an inkling that you're getting sick or could get someone else sick, stay home. Stay home. And when you do go out, take the proper precautions. Wash your hands, sanitize your hands, wear your masks. This isn't rocket science, folks. We can listen to the medical professionals all we want. Say, well, this will do the trick and this might do the trick, but that might not do the trick. It starts with us. And, this isn't just with COVID-19. This is with flu epidemics that you hear every single year. Folks, if I'm sick, I don't go anywhere. If my kids are sick, I don't send them to school. Take that ball and roll with it. Help us all out. You're complaining that there might not be an NFL season. If you're one of the ones that are going out when you're sick, you're the reason why.
Yeah. Follow the guidelines. You're right, Jerry. Follow the guidelines every day. I guess a lot of people don't understand also, in a couple of months, kids are due to go back to school as well. And a lot of people, a lot of families have problems being able to maintain their home and balancing home and work with the kids at home, right? So think of it as an advantage if you're able to do the necessary precautions. Now you may not have to homeschool, right? You may not have to be able to miss a football game. That's another thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to see more videos out there of people arguing and pushing down workers and staff members and just becoming irate, having council meetings where they're just like, you don't tell me how to wear my mask. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm like, okay. All right. I mean, it's simple logic. And I think sometimes we need to be we need to stop listening to certain things and because it becomes mildly Well, let me just be quiet. All right, so let me just go on. Just let's stay safe, guys. I'm just going to say that. All right, guys. One last thing, Bob. We have a great relationship with Facebook groups, and we have a great relationship with people in the groups as well. So please forgive us if you believe that any of our articles have been overreaching and overstepping the lines as becoming political. Let me tell you, we report the news. The news is about the Saints and NFL. If that news has some political edge to it, it's not to ruffle your feathers. It's to be able to provide you the information. Okay. And I think a lot of times people take information, and you've heard so many chants and so many fake news, this and fake that. And guys, I mean, come on. How do you learn unless you get information? Right? It's time for us to stop trying to put our head in the sand or put our hands over our ears and not want to hear bad news. Come on. The reality is this is real life. COVID-19 is not a political issue. It is a health issue. Think about the hundreds of thousands of people across the world who have died as a result. This is a health issue. The thousands of people in our Gulf Coast region who have been negatively impacted as well. It's a health issue. Treat it as such, not as a political issue, but as a health issue. All right. Paul T, people are too damn sensitive. I appreciate y'all articles. Thank you very much, Paul, man. I appreciate that as well. Jerry said that's why people were messed up right now. Yeah, that's right. Let's follow the guidelines. Stay safe. Mask up, guys. Stay safe. Mask up. Stay safe. Mask up. All right, Bob, tell everybody how they can find you on the World Wide Web.
Well, folks, we appreciate, both Kyle and I appreciate you tuning in to us on a Friday night. I hope, as always, you enjoy not only tonight's show, but all of our works. I can be followed individually on Facebook by looking up Bob Rose, or on Twitter at BobbyR2613. All of my articles, as y'all know, are through the Saints News Network and SI.com. So give myself, Kyle Mosley, John Hendricks, Brendan Boylan, Carla Antoine a follow over there at SI.com / Saints, the Saints News Network page as well. And then also on Facebook. Thank you so much to you if you're already a member of our Bayou Blitz Facebook page. Shame on you if you aren't already a member of our Bayou Blitz Facebook page. We streamline all of our articles and all of our shows directly through the page. Oftentimes, we post the article on the Bayou Blitz page before we matriculate it through the rest of social media and through the rest of Facebook. We have a very interactive crew over at the Bayou Blitz page, so please, send out a member request. All you need to do is stay civil to the other members and let us know your opinions and let us know your questions when you have them. Very simple membership. And thank you all for your support now and always.
Yeah, thank you. We really do appreciate everything that you guys have done and continue to do for us over our being a part of your Facebook groups as well. Okay. Couple of just housekeeping items on my side. Don't forget to go to si.com / NFL / Saints, or you can also type in saintsnews.net to be able to go to our website and look at all the latest articles from myself, John Hendricks, Bob Rose, Brendan Borland, Dr. C, Carla, Antoine, as well as Mike Detillier. Mike is going to have a special guest piece on tomorrow morning. So take a look at that. It's going to be a pretty good read there. And also, that's right, Paul T, matriculate. Matriculate that ball down the field, guys. Who said that?
Coach Hank Graham, Super Bowl IV.
That's right. I remember I wrote that in the article once about matriculating the ball down the field, and one of the writers said, oh, what is that? I never heard of matriculating. I was like, okay, you got to know that. That's Hank Graham, he was there, man. All right, Paul T. Yeah, you guys stay safe. You too, Paul, Jerry, everybody who's with us tonight. You guys stay safe as well.
Yeah.
But most of all, guys, stay smart. Don't forget to follow us at Saints News on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, as well as Twitter. You can check us out, and you can check me out at KTMOZE on Twitter. I don't do much. I'm starting to do more on Twitter these days. Man, I had that account sitting there for 10 years, didn't really do anything. I was like, okay. Then SI say, we need to have you on Twitter. Okay, all right, I'll be on Twitter, guys. So that's where you can find me on Twitter. That's how you can find me at Saints News, of course, and at KTMOZE. All right, Bob, tell Will, your family, Lauren, and the girls and everybody, hey, Will, there he goes. Man, he's fast.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell everybody we said hello. I hope you guys out there in the Who Dat Nation have a safe. Just be safe this weekend, guys, and stay vigilant and wear your mask. And if you don't want to wear your mask, blame it on me. I say wear your mask. Okay. I think it's very important that we do the right thing right now. Okay. All right. This is Kyle T. Mosley with Bob Rose of the Bayou Blitz. Bob, have a great evening. Fans, you guys have a great evening. Who dat, baby? Take care. Bye.
Who dat?